and welcome to African Real Estate TV, where we have conversations on all things real estate. And today we have an amazing guest, as always. We have Augustine, who is an architect, and just for me not to preempt everything that concerns him, Karibu sana, Augustine.
Thank you so much, Mel, for the introduction. Yes, you introduced me as Augustine. My name is Augustine Shitote, and I've specialized in landscape architecture. That's what I studied for. I've been practicing, and my experience is 8 years in the industry. I work for a company by the name BDL, Elarch Designs Limited, based in Nairobi. So, in a nutshell, that's why.
Nice. You said you studied landscape architecture in campus.
Yes, landscape architecture on campus. It
Whoa.
happens that Jomo Kenyatta University
Mm-hmm.
is the only university in Kenya that offers the degree program, undergraduate degree program.
It's the only one.
Yes, it's the only one.
Wow. Okay. What inspired you to join landscape architecture?
So, funny enough, I wasn't, I didn't know about it back then, but it happened that I got a chance to travel outside the country, and I got to experience or see some things that are happening elsewhere. And I was, let me say, mesmerized because of the way the spaces were, how the organization and the planning of the towns are done. So when I came back to the country, initially I wanted to be a lawyer, but when I came back to the country and I saw sort of a niche that can be exploited, and I felt like it's something that can be done back in the country. At first, I didn't know how to approach it, but over time, I got to learn about a course called landscape architecture. So, on inquiring uh, some of the people that I was directed to, there is one, the late Professor Ngindidi, who is one of the founding, let me say, fathers of landscape architecture in Kenya. So I was told about him and what the course entails. And so I fell in love because it's one of the things that I felt would be able to bring some change around. And that's how I ended up being a landscape architect.
Interesting. Had you traveled immediately after your high school, or you traveled just when you were still contemplating joining campus?
That's twice. One during high school, the other is after high school. So actually, what happened is during high school, I wasn't able to put so much thought into it. So I just selected the courses, and that's why I said one of the courses that I wanted to pursue was in law. But then after high school, I saw this something different that can be done within the country. So I decided to go and make changes to my course selection, and that's how I selected landscape architecture.
What does landscape architecture mean? What do you do?
For landscape architecture, what we do is it's a course, it's a profession within the built environment. So the built environment, we have the building architects, the landscape architects, the quantity surveyors, the interior designers, the environmentalists, we have the engineers, both civil, structural, mechanical engineers. So for landscape architecture, what we do is we design the open spaces. So these are spaces that both interior, that's within the building and outside the building. So you'll find things like parks or the open gardens, around. Those are designed by landscape architects. So what they do is basically to design, to manage, and to nurture both the built and the natural environments. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm. Uh, how, what kind of projects have you taken on since you said you have been in the industry for 8 years? 8 years is a long time.
Maybe if I go back a little bit in still in what the kind of things that we do, there
Okay.
are two things that I would like to highlight. One is there are two things that I would like to highlight. That's in terms of the material. We do both hard, we call it hardscape and softscape. So for hardscapes, we have let's say the walkways, the pavings, uh, some structures. Let's say gazebos, pergolas. We do water features, swimming pools, such kind of designs. That's for the hardscapes. And then for the softscapes, now that comes to plants. So we also use plants in our design so that we enhance the experience that we have. So I've handled a number of projects in the course of my practice. Uh, I'll just mention, it might not be exhaustive, but some of those projects include hospitality projects where we've worked for done both design and sometimes we build for hotels. Uh, We've done residential areas. You've heard about gated communities or field estates, even those single dwelling areas. We've done designs and sometimes built them. We've also done health centers, uh, like currently I'm handling project in the Tanzania for hospital. So that's some of the projects that we're handling. There are also recreational areas. These are parks. Uh, when I talk about parks, maybe think of Uru Gardens, Uru Park, those kind of areas, but not necessarily handled by me, but there are other recreational areas that I've handled that are within the same medium. Yes.
And just to take you back a little bit, you said you studied this in campus. How many were you in your class? And how many landscape architects are in the country?
Landscape architecture, the first class I think was in 2006, and
Hmm.
yes, 2006, and averagely per class, there are about 15 to 20 guys. So if you work with that number till now, that's you can be able to we can be able to get a rough estimate for that. I would say about 400, more or less about
Yeah.
400.
Given
Yes, yes.
that it's only one campus that offers a degree certification for this, that's a pretty low number.
There are two groups of people.
Mhm.
There are those that had studied outside the country and they came back
Mm,
to practice within the country. Like I've mentioned about the late Professor Ngundiri who started the course in Jomo Kenyatta. He studied it outside the country, and that's how he came to start it in the country. So there are those who
mm,
studied outside the country, and
mm,
then there are those that practiced. It was out of experience for them. Some guys were practicing, but out of experience. So those were the
mm.
two groups that existed back then. But there wasn't a course officially for landscape architecture in the country.
Yeah, that actually makes sense because most of the professionals, even after our independence, most of the professionals had gone out, studied, and then they came back and now transferred the knowledge and then now pushed out people to discover that they can do these things. So yeah, that makes sense. We were just talking about the projects that you guys do, what you do, what your work incorporates. What would you say have been your favorite projects to work on? And what has been your most challenging project to work on as a landscape architect? And
Okay, sorry.
no, I wanted to say, and I know that's a hard one because every project, maybe you love them the same and they're different and they are so diverse. But if you were like, what project made you so excited to work on it? Yeah, and which one was one which really you had to crack your brain so hard to figure it out?
So one as you mentioned, every project is unique and it has its own unique challenges. But I'm going to pick two of them. One is the one that I had to handle on my own, and that's immediately after my just a few years after my campus years. Uh, it's a project by Dazzling Asyana Gardens in Rongai. It was a challenge because there was no initially I was underprivileged, but then when I left the company I was initially employed, that was one of my first projects to handle as individually. So I had to learn so much so fast in order to bring the projects to fruition. And I'm quite happy about it because it came out well. It was a success, and it's a project
Nice.
that has brought forth so many referrals because of how it came out. The other one I would pick would be Meru. It was a riverfront rehabilitation project. It's still ongoing, and the challenge about it is that we had to get a solution to a problem that was not within the site. We are doing a rehabilitation of the river, and the main cause of the problem was upstream. So we had to figure out how to sort that problem, but within our site. So that was a challenge. And to add to that is that the client happens to be a colleague who is also in the built environment. So I had to up my game in order to match what's up as what involves about the profession. So it was a challenge because you work with someone who knows you always have to work to a certain level of
How did you
confidence.
resolve that with the river issue?
So with the river issue, one is there was the issue of farming, farming upstream, and most of the fertilizer, the synthetic fertilizer ended up in the stream. There was so much erosion upstream. So the solution was one to slow down the water so that we can be able to control the erosion that was happening. So part of the solution was to create a dam of sorts so that the water can be slowed down when it gets to the point. And then the other one was through the use of plants. So the plants we used were able to do the absorption of the chemicals within the water. And also it helped in terms of slowing down the water as well. So when that happened, uh, by the time the water was being released out of the site, then it was in a fairly good state, and that was proved by the fact that there was a lot of uh, life downstream in terms of the fauna, the animals, frogs, crabs, and everything started coming back. Birds started coming back to the area because of the plant connections that we did. So it's fairly a success. It's still ongoing, but at the moment it's fairly successful in terms of the solutions that we get for that.
So, you mentioning about the river, and you also said landscape architecture is the planning of it includes the planning of a town. What do you think about Nairobi and how we have really terrible systems. Because when you think about how the whole planning is and how the drainage systems are put together, how they have, and I know they have been in place for a long time. I don't think there has been any improvements so far in the town regarding that. What can you say about that?
So it happens that landscape architecture and urban planning, they are more or less the same courses, even though they are different. So my undergraduate was in landscape architecture, and because of one of the issues that we mentioned about in terms of the sewer drainage system, that's more of a planning issue. It happens that I'm currently pursuing my master's in urban planning,
Oh,
so that I'm
nice.
able to understand some of those issues in a little bit more detailed way. But just to go into it, as I mentioned, it's a planning issue and an urban area management issue because there's always growth, but it happens that we do not catch up with the rates at which towns or urban centers grow. So when that happens, then the system that were put there beforehand, initially they worked because uh, yeah, they worked because there was an optimal condition for them to work, but at the moment then they have been overtaken with them, so they are not sustainable. So what maybe needs to happen is to have an overlook of the whole system so that we come up with different solutions to be able to accommodate the population that's ever growing. Yeah, so
What
it
are the
does not.
chances that can happen?
It's it can happen if certain issues or certain aspects of life can come together and work together in order to sort that. Because you know there's the issue of the population, there's the issue of the political goodwill, there's the issue of the way the land is in itself and the developments that have already taken place. So if we are able to bring all these things together and then move, then we can be able to sort. But at the moment, it's a complex situation because it's sort of walking in eggshells. You don't know what's going to happen in that one aspect of it. Yes.
Yeah. And having traveled in your as you work across Africa, with your projects and all, which country would you say that you have gone to and you think they have a good urban planning structure that is in place?
Right now, I'd take two African countries. Say they are making an attempt at having proper planning of their urban areas. One would be Kigali in Rwanda, and the other one would be Cape Town in South Africa.
Mm.
Yes, those
Mm.
two I would say that they're making attempts at having proper urban structures, to manage their towns.
Yeah.
There are things that I would say people know about and people have experienced. The only issue is that, as I've mentioned, it's not a one-sided approach. It's a multi-system approach. So you can't just solve it from one side. You have to engage everyone in it. So maybe I would say that's the challenge that we experience at the moment.
Mm. All right. Okay. What is something that people don't know about landscape architecture?
I would say it's the misconception that landscape architecture is about beauty. It's about grass and it's about plants. That's at first glance that's what someone will tell you landscape architecture is about. Uh, but that's not the case. Um, landscape architecture, as I've said, there's the design and the nurturing, and there's also the management of both the built and natural environment. And so in our approach, we use scientific methods to make scientific methods and arts to bring in solutions to different issues. It might be drainage. It might be right now there is a hot issue of climate change, and so many other things that needs to be solved within the spaces that we live in. So beauty, grass, and plants, those ones come at the far end after if you've been able to give a solution to a electrical process.
Let's address this issue, which I have been trying to understand. And like we said, like other factors, it's multi-structural and it requires a lot of, systemic planning and all that. But from your perspective, I think it's an African issue, but like in our country, especially in the city, in Nairobi and Mombasa, I have also seen we have so many buildings that collapse all the time. What do you think is the problem and what can be done about it?
I think I mentioned this in a different question that I initially asked.
Mm-hmm.
I said there are things that we know, but either we don't want to act on them or we just ignore them altogether. Because I might quote back to you if you've been keen to observe what side of the, let me call it the urban area that these collapses happen. And if you have a keen look at it, some of these areas out let's say like Yambu has had a number of cases about buildings collapsing. If you come to an area like let's say Parkland or let's say Westlands or let's say let me put it in quotes high area that construction is taking place, the collapse of buildings is almost at zero. So that is one case. And then number two, if you look at the two areas, there's the level at which professionals are engaged. So that might immediately answer the question that in some areas they ignore the involvement of professionals, maybe because of the misconception that if I engage a professional, then the costs of the project will skyrocket, which is not really the case. It ends up being cheaper and more affordable to the clients, as opposed to when they engage guys that are not professionals. And you know, some of these guys they have learned this skill through experience, and there are so many things that are overlooked at the time in which they are carrying out the construction. So if you engage professionals, then it means that there are so many things that have to be considered. Let's say in terms of the structure, you engage the structural engineer. There are so many things that you have to look at before that building or the structure comes up. So it saves you a lot of headache and a lot of unnecessary not being sure of what's going to happen because they have already handled all aspects of the structure. So I would say the main cause for these collapses is the lack of involvement or the lack of engagement of professionals in their development. So that's what's causing the collapse.
It's very unfortunate that we never really get to learn. And I think with the ballooning population in the cities, people keep putting up houses and they just ignore this. As long as there is demand for the houses, they will just ignore and move forward. But yeah, I wish our government would be more strict on compliance of these things, like ensure that you have a professional, especially if it's in a place where it's going to accommodate many citizens. But hey, we are here. What to do? Speaking of compliance, I was speaking to someone who is a leader of people living with disabilities, and he was mentioning, we were talking about mobility, disability, and accessibility in the real estate space and the constructions that have been put in place. And he was mentioning how inaccessibility is such a big thing that causes most of the people who are living with disability not to be able to, have access to amazing homes, to even go and work, because some of the offices are like 5 floors up, 9 floors up, without an elevator, without lifts. Why do you think there is such lack of compliance, so to say, on ensuring that buildings are disability compliant? One, and two, is there something that can be done to ensure that these people are considered when putting up structures?
Yes, so initially this wasn't even so much thought, and that's why many of the buildings done long time ago do not have some of the facilities that would enable ease of movements being incorporated in them. But with time, the conversation has been growing, and some of these things are being incorporated in the design. So you will notice the buildings have from one you start from the entry, let's say the entry of the space, just before you get to the building. You will realize that there's the choice of material in terms of what space people are going to use uh, to move them from one place to another. So the choice of the material is very important. You don't end up picking very slippery material that can be able to cause injury or harm. Number two, there is in terms of the signage, the directional signage, which are able to indicate for different areas. So you'll find the disability spots in terms of parking spaces that are being allocated. There's the ramps that are being provided for to access buildings, and it's not just a ramp. The ramp has to have a certain slope so that it's not too steep or it's not too in terms of the gentleness, so that you can be able to move up and down with ease without too much struggle. If you get into the building, the lifts and all those positions that are put in place to assist the people with disability to be able to utilize the spaces. So this is increasingly being considered. It's a very critical part of both design and building that's taking place. So the advances that are made every day to make this as seamless as possible.
Okay. So with the world focusing toward climate-friendly approaches, do you have some ways that may lead to sustainable architecture? And what are some of those things that, as architectures, you're considering to incorporate in your projects, designs, or whatever you work on that is sustainable and climate friendly?
Yeah, so the issue now is about climate change, and this is very, very critical at the moment. So it's that to assist in this, and the professionals in the built environment have not been left behind either. So there are so many considerations that are being done. I'm not sure, but you might have come across terms like green architecture. So in terms of construction, there are things that like garden routes that are being done just to reduce the heat that's being emitted by the concrete that is used for construction. There are things like green walls that are being done. Okay. And these green walls, they also assist in managing the climate conditions. If you look at the way roads are being done at the moment, the, a good example, not the best, but a good example is Thika Road. The initial state and the current state were two separate states apart. There is the incorporation of plants in the design and building. So notice in areas, let's say, Rosters, Rosambu, the stretch, let's say, between Kenyatta University and Cleveland, there are some open spaces which people go to sit at. This might not be intended, but people like sitting in those spaces. But at the same time, these spaces also have a different use in terms of collecting or absorbing the greenhouse gases, the emissions that are being done by vehicles and all that. So that's the same thing in buildings as well. You find there are those greenhouses just trying to reduce the greenhouse gases in terms of lighting considerations, reduced use of electric power and more attempts to use natural lighting in the buildings. And there is also the issue of using technology so that some of these things are automated using sensors able to switch on or switch off lights based on the sensors that are able to detect the lights and everything. So
Yeah.
the profession is really pushing towards having the term of ensuring that the screen uptake and climate change is well taken care of.
That's something that our former president tried with the expressway. What happened to those plans?
Yeah, so the improvements which are done each and every day, some of them will miss, some of them will get them right. I will not want to make so much comments about the expressway, uh, but it's one of the things that we can learn from and do things differently. Yes.
What is something different that can be done with regards to, because we have new cities. I was told Eldoret will soon be a city. So should they want to, make a new road with an expressway, what are some of the lessons that have been learned from the one which was constructed in Nairobi that can be borrowed for the other cities?
One is in terms of the consideration of the spaces that are, let's say, big expressway, in terms of the spaces that are below the currently. Because these spaces, I would say, have not been given much thought. They have been left as negative or those spaces that are not given much consideration. Number two is in terms of the accessibility into the carriageway. Some areas they are not very friendly. There is also the issue of the drainage of the carriageway. For example, of the expressway, the drainage has been released on the lower side, and then after that, it has not been considered where this water will be taken to source. You find many times that issue of flooding and clogging of the drain lines because this has not been well thought about. So those are some of the things that can be really like thought through so that we do not end up with the same situation. There's also the issue of the concrete slab that has been done. It's a very big chunk, which I'm sure the heat that's being emitted from that it's of considerable strength. So those are things that can be looked at.
Yeah. The way you're just explaining, I'm thinking when you walk in every city, does your mind always go on, alert, like this is wrong, this shouldn't happen? This should not have been done. Who did this? This is so wrong. Do you always think about that?
Happens that by training, you have to think through things and consider all the possible scenarios. And the fact that we've done design courses and in the built environment, then these are things that are always on your face and you're always noticing things that ordinarily you would not be thinking about. So it's an occupational hazard when you walk around, you see something and you're like, oh, this will be done differently, or oh, this looks nice. And it's part of our life at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think that's the same with every profession. If someone is very intentional and passionate about it, they tend to bring it. It tends to come up every now and then when they are even outside of their professional or workspace. So speaking of that, I'd like to know when, I know we mentioned about the African countries. Now in Kenya, which town do you think is doing an okay job of planning, trying to be considerate about the things that should be considered about with regards to the town and just the entire space generally?
I would say each and every town in the country has professionals that are working within it. So it's an issue of facilitation and the goodwill that is being expressed. But I would say each and every town is making an attempt towards doing the right thing. But maybe from the towns, I would pick about three of them immediately. I'd pick Kiambu, I'd pick Kisumu, I'd pick Kakamega. I think Mombasa has also made some attempts, but I'll pick the three towns immediately off the top of my mind. Yes, I would say
Oh
they are
wow.
making great attempts in terms of trying to sort some of these issues.
Yeah. In Nairobi, which building have you encountered, gone to, seen from afar, that you thought, the architect who worked on that did a good job?
There's one particular one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it has to have some sort of bias because from someone alone, and that's why I was like, oh, he did something different, which is quite interesting and nice, and that would be Vienna Court along Settlers Crescent Road.
Along?
Settlers Crescent Road. It's
Ah,
called Vienna Court. You can, the only access is Settlers Crescent, but along processional way, that's the backyard of it, and then the front yard is on Settlers Crescent Road. So in terms of the harmony of the building to the environment, I'd say it was given quite some thoughts and it came out really nice.
mm. What made it stand out for you? What is so unique about it?
So one, I would say I mentioned it earlier, the harmony, and number two is the forms by forms, and put it as the shapes that are used to come up with both the outdoor and the structure itself. So like they worked so seamlessly, and
Mm-hmm.
it was something that was quite impressive. The features that were incorporated within the project, the consideration for the movement, all those things work harmoniously together. So I would say it was a great attempt.
Hmm. We'll be visiting that and giving you our reviews. Who are the inspirations in the architecture world, and what about them makes them your inspiration?
So I, I would not I would not want to credit. I'll pick. Let me just go straight to it. I'll pick two or three of them. Number one, I'll pick Frederick Olmsted is considered the father of landscape architecture. One of actually the pioneer of landscape architecture worldwide. The guy who came up with the Central Park in the US. And the thing that inspired me, or the thing that endears me to him, is his foresightedness, because he was able to foresee some of these things that were struggling a long, long time ago. And he did come up with interventions that are still applicable even today. And some of those things is just considering uh, parks and those green spaces within the city, so that guys can be able to go not only to relax, but it also acts as like we call it the lungs of the lungs of the city, like they help in purifying the air and just making the city that we live in more habitable. So it's one of the guys. The other one is the late Professor Wilbidi also happens to be the one who started landscape architecture in Kenya. And what endears me to him is his ability to grasp some of these complex issues and be able to express them in a very simple way that many of us were able to understand. So it's really uh, trained us to be these thinkers and people that are able to bring solutions that are simplified so that people are able to apply them with a lot of ease. I think those two.
All right. Any advice to someone who aspires to join landscape architecture, and what should they prepare themselves for?
So, what we should be prepared for that in terms of class work, they should be prepared for long hours of working, sometimes spending sleepless nights in studios, our classes, our design classes, just trying to cut out and get solutions to, at first, the imaginary problems, then eventually the real problems. So they should be prepared to work for very long hours. It's one of the things. And the other thing is I would advise them to, if in case they happen to join the course or they happen to join the profession, my advice would be to be patient, to be committed, and to be passionate about it, not to come with the money mentality. They should come in with an objective to solve issues that are affecting so many people within the community. So that's why we are talking about the drainage issues, the human settlement issues, the climate change issues, all those issues. We should be prepared to attempt to solve them rather than coming with the money mentality. Of course, at the end of the day, is that aspect, but it comes in as you grow into the profession. But immediately there are those challenges. If you come in expects to get money immediately, to not be there. If you just come and be patient, work and be willing to learn and to take in as much as possible so that they can be able to go and offer solutions for the many myriad of challenges that they are experiencing.
Wow, that's valuable. You mentioned you have an upcoming event for landscape architects just before we started recording. Tell us more about that.
So there is the IFLA World Congress, and it's not only for landscape architects, it's a congress for all the built environment professionals and any other person that might be interested to join us and to learn what happens within the locality that's Kenya and one week. So it's a joint event that will be held by both Sweden and Kenya. And as I mentioned, it brings professionals in the built environment where they initially went from the building architects, landscape architects, quantity surveyors, engineers, planners, interior designers, all those things within the built environment. So it's happening on the 28th and 29th of this month, and it's bringing people from all over the world.
Can someone who's not in the field attend the conference?
Yes, yes. Anyone who is not application within the built environment is welcome to attend the conference, the congress.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Finally, and I know I know you're not a social media person, but if someone is to reach out to you, how could they find you?
So you can find me in not in an individual capacity as a company. If not all the spaces, you can find us in that one Facebook, Elarch Designs. You can find us on Twitter, Elarch Designs. You can find us in Twitter is X. You can find us in Instagram, Elarch Designs Limited as well. So I'll share the handles, but Elarch Design Limited in all the social spaces.
Yeah, that's manageable. All right. Thank you so much, Augustine, for your time and for educating us about landscape architecture. It's been incredible just hearing and learning what it's all about and what you're doing to improve our spaces, what you're doing to improve, our livelihoods, even as we navigate this urban life and all that. Really, really appreciate you. Awesome. All right. Thank you to our viewer for tuning in again for another episode of our Real Estate Conversations with Real Estate Professionals. It's always a pleasure having you here, and I look forward to having you next time. Until then, remember to like and subscribe to this channel.